Hi, this is Manjula Narayan, books editor, Hindustan Times, and I have with me today, the translators of the Asterix comics into Hindi, which is like such a wonderful idea. And so this is Dipa Chaudhuri and Puneet Gupta. I was really fascinated when I just got the mail yesterday, and I was thinking, about how difficult it would be, the French to Hindi translation.
France insisted, in fact, Hachette Livre insisted that it be translated from French to Hindi and not from English to Hindi. So it worked out very well in our minds. I think Ajay Mago, the publisher of Home Books International, and I, we had absolutely no doubt about the Hindi side of it. It was going to be Puneet Gupta because he'd already translated Tintin into Hindi. And because I have my academic background in French studies, in fact it's French literature, so Ajay just suggested, he just took a chance, he was playing for Broke, and he took a chance and he said that why don't you come on board for the French part of it. The process is actually quite simple. I am presenting to him the multiple layers of meanings of each sentence, each word, each name, whether it's in Latin, whether it's in French, whether it's in German. We're translating from all kinds of languages into Hindi.
And the historical context.
The historical context, the cultural context.
Cultural context, yes.
And he's very good at picking it all up and then filtering it through multiple values of Hindi translations. And then both of us, we deliberate on what would finally be the translation.
We do it from French. So I have to listen to her, as to what the French says, and then we sort of do it in Hindi, translate it in Hindi. We find various options as to what would be the correct or most appropriate ones out of those, and that we retain. So it goes that way.
Okay. So now we've got Asterix Talwar Baz, which is
the fourth comic.
Fourth
comic.
Yeah.
So which one was the first that you worked on?
Asterix, the Gaul. Gaulvasi Asterix.
This
yes.
one.
Yes.
So this is the first one.
Yes.
Okay. So, the first one must have presented some challenges. And as you go on, it might have, I don't know, gotten easier.
I wouldn't actually say that it has got easier because each comic is a different book in itself.
Yes.
So, and they have their own set of characters apart from the regular ones. New characters come, and there is a entirely new story and entirely new narrative. So, it's not that it becomes easier, but yes, you do get familiar with the process of translating.
So, the first thing that hit both of us was that Hindi has a longer syntax than French does because the matras are on the top, on the side, at the bottom, and we have speech blurbs in which we had to fit in our translation. So we couldn't sort of take two shots and translate and waffle on. We had to keep it very, very short. Hindi was, we were using a typeface, which was actually a typeface which was going to be typed out on a keyboard, whereas the original French is handwritten. So we had to look for a font which was as close to the original in French. The problem doesn't end over there. You sort one thing out and the next thing lands on your lap. You realize that by the time you've got to Asterix and the Goths, they speak Gothvasi, okay? They speak with a different accent. And with a different accent, how have the French highlighted it? Not only is the accent there linguistically, but the font is different. So then again, we do a runaround for the font to try and see, okay, how do we bring a distinction in the accent and the provenance of the country through a different font. Then, of course, there are all these bits about, I think now he wants to sign up for Latin as well, because there's enough of Latin also over there. And sometimes a series of sentences in Latin. And so we were banging our heads against the wall saying that, look, do we translate these into Sanskrit? Do we use a Sanskritized syntax? Do we use ordinary register? If Julius Caesar is saying it, how are we going to do it? If an ordinary Cynic is saying it, how are we going to translate it? So there were a lot of challenges.
Luckily, we have Sanskrit, which is as old in language as Latin is.
Yeah.
So our first thought was to put it in Sanskrit. But then, Sanskrit not everybody understands.
Yeah.
So it would take a lot of the fun away from reading, because if every time you have to look for a dictionary to find out. So the most common Sanskrit words that we used, otherwise we used a higher and purer form of Hindi only
Yeah.
to depict the Latin.
Okay. Okay. So this is what in Asterix and the Romans or Asterix and Cleopatra, I suppose you would need
Yes.
to use. So Asterix and Cleopatra won't have much trouble because it's all in
Hieroglyphics.
I know. Now every language has got a different sound system altogether.
That's true.
So if I were just to take the sound of splashing water, the French would say plouf.
The French would say splash, the English would say splash,
Yes.
and Hindi would be chapak.
Chapak.
Chapak. That's true.
So
yeah.
even if you had the visual support, and you didn't know the language, you would say, okay, fine, I get it. But if you remove the visual support, then all these 101 sounds that we've gathered in the first 4, God knows what's going to happen by the time we reach 24. How many thousands of sounds we would have gathered.
Plus, then there are many interesting characters. In Asterix, one of the primary form of humor is the names of the characters.
Yeah.
All the names, apart from the historical figures, all the name that appears in the series, they are puns.
Yeah.
They are mini joke in themselves.
How would you translate Getafix?
Getafix is actually we did not translate Getafix because that's the English translation.
Yeah.
We translated from the French, which is Druid Panoramics. Panoramics. So we translated as Ojha Aushadhiks. A gatherer of herbs and a brewer of magic potion. A magic potion itself we called Jadui Kadha.
Okay. So you're getting more of the folk feel into it.
Yes, precisely. And then gatherer of herbs and some magic as well. In fact, his potion is called magic potion. There are other characters which are Romans. And Romans, right from their 4 fortified camps that are there.
Yes.
Their names are puns as well.
Yeah.
For example, there is one which happens in the first comic, Asterix Gauls. Original French is Tullius Octopus.
Okay.
And we translated it, the character as Kaddukas.
Okay.
So, because this character is, broad, he's thick, and he's thick in the head also. Then there's another character called Caligula Minis, whom we have translated as Lutia Dubas.
Okay.
Yes.
In fact, the French people, when they vetted the translation, they were very appreciative.
They were delighted with the
character names.
But how did they grasp the local flavor of it? Because
They wetted it. They got it wetted by somebody who was a specialist in Hindi.
Okay.
And
So
we did when we were getting
Hindi and
feedback
French,
from
yes.
them. But the other thing also in these books are some of these songs.
Yeah.
And they're actual songs in French. And
Oh, really?
they're actual songs
Which
in
you don't
French.
get in English. You don't get that.
You don't get
feel
that
in
flavor
English.
in English at all. So I'll give you the example of 2 songs.
What is cacophonics in Hindi?
Cacophonics is
Besur
Besur Talix. Besur Talix.
Oh, that works.
It doesn't have any idea about the...
completely
No rhythm, no melody, no music,
melody,
nothing.
no idea about
Okay.
Yeah.
Sings atrociously.
Sings atrociously, and there is a time where he is in the middle of the sea, and he sings a certain song, and he says that il était une galère qui ne savait pas naviguer.
Ohe, ohe.
Now ohe. Now this is actually not even a French song; it's a nursery rhyme. But the nursery rhyme has been transmuted because the original nursery rhyme is il était un petit navire qui ne savait pas naviguer. Now, when you look at the nursery rhyme, you realize that eventually it is going to be about a little boy. They're on a ship and they've run out of food. And now it's going to come into a very cannibalistic kind of an approach where a little boy on the ship is going to be elected to be cooked and eaten. And the French translation out here, the transmutation out here, is interesting because what Cacophonix is saying is that all these galley slaves, they do not know how to row properly. And if they don't row better than this, they are cooked and done for. So from a poem in English, in French, they twisted it into French, and from there we had to twist it into
Hindi.
Hindi.
See, for us, what is more important is to keep the flavor going. See, where we cannot possibly,
Because it's so completely
depict
different
the
context, cultural
cultural context without a footnote. We were not allowed footnotes. So then what we had to do was we had to borrow from the popular boat songs that everybody knows. So we came up with Mere Majhi, Ore Mere Majhi. मेरे साजन है उस पार मैं मझधार.
Which also actually,
मैं मझधार means that you are in soup.
yeah, you're in a soup. So pretty much we sort of got the idea. Now there are times when, for instance, there are these nationalistic songs in French.
Yeah.
So
Also, there are army marches.
Army
when
marches.
An army marches, for example, in Asterix the Gladiator, Talwar
Which
Baz
is
Asterix.
this one,
yeah.
Talwar Baz.
There is a frame where the German army is marching and they are singing a song. So now we have to, take some sort of a song which would show that the army is marching. So we put a song Kadam Kadam Badhaye Ja.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
But now the twist of flavor is this, that we had assigned a very guttural accent to the Germans. So they were speaking not ja but za.
so kadam kadam bhai ja.
And instead of the ra, they would speak ra
Okay.
to make it more guttural.
Okay.
So it's kadam kadam badhaye za.
Okay. So immediately you know that this bunch is different.
Yes, this bunch is different. We used a different font as well, but we assigned them a sort of a culturally appropriate accent.
Yes, that it was Teutonic, that it had to be very German sounding and all that.
Okay.
So that's how this whole thing
Gosh,
has
it
come
sounds
about.
completely complex.
It is very complex. But you see, Asterix comics is basically, it's not a comic for kids.
It's not. It's not.
It has such
I mean,
an
kids
intelligent
can enjoy
humor.
it.
Yeah, that's
but
fine. That's
adults
fine.
also.
Your
I mean,
first brush with Asterix maybe when you were a kid, but then when you read the same comic again, when you are an
and
adult,
you return to it many times.
when you return, yes, of course, I read the entire thing every year. But when you return to it, you find new humor that you had missed because you were not attuned at that point of time.
That's
to understand the finer nuances of the text.
Of the text. Yes. Okay, so I could go on talking to you because this is like so interesting and it's like, it's much more, I mean, I knew it would be complicated and complex, but it's clearly you guys have really thought it out and worked on it at various levels. And I'm sure that comes out in the, in the books as well. So here we have Asterix Talwar Baz, Asterix or Gothvasi. These are the 4 ones, na?
Yeah.
Gaulvasi, Asterix, and Sone ki Darati. So that's Asterix, the golden sickle, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So those are the four Asterix titles in Hindi and very fascinating. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you, Manjula.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manjula.